Welcome, everybody, to this episode of The Monthly Blend, a monthly video podcast brought to you by Next, powered by Schulman Rogers and Connectpreneur. Today, we'll be talking about the state of the life sciences, the early stage life sciences market here in the DMV. I'm Tien Wong, founder and host of the Big Idea Connectpreneur community. We are a global community of over 30,000 investors, founders, and business leaders. I'm also CEO of Opus 8, which helps companies and fund managers raise money through our network of accredited private investors, angels, and family offices throughout the U.S. Along with my co-host, Anthony Millin, who's the founder and chair of Next, powered by Schulman Rogers, we're pleased to present to you this monthly video podcast, which covers trends, information, and fascinating interviews with game changers and newsmakers here in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore Metroplex. Anthony and I started this podcast a little over 2.5 years ago as a way to increase awareness of cool, innovative happenings in our region, to break down silos and serve as a mechanism to do our part to help bring the region together, to help foster innovation and entrepreneurship here. Today, we're thrilled to have a conversation with three leaders in the life sciences community here in the Baltimore, D.C. Metroplex. And they are leading entrepreneurs, investors, and organization leaders in the region. And in alphabetical order, we have Deborah Hemingway, who's the managing partner of Ecphora Capital. We have Kelly Schulz, CEO of the Maryland Tech Council, and Christian Walker, CEO of Solaxa. And I'd love to start by having each of our guests do a brief self-introduction. Deb, why don't we start with you? Thank you and welcome.
Great. Thank you so much, Tien. Yes, as you just mentioned, I'm Deborah Hemingway, and I'm the founder and managing partner of Ecphora Capital. So Ecphora Capital is an early stage medtech VC firm in Baltimore. And I founded this firm in 2022 after a stint angel investing and also serving as either a founder, funder, or board member of 53 startups in the area. So seen a lot and supported a lot of companies and really excited about what I see and looking forward to seeing how this whole ecosystem continues to grow.
Thank you, Deb. Kelly Schulz, CEO of Maryland Tech Council. Welcome, Kelly.
Well, thank you, Tien. It's great to be here with some wonderful founders and leaders within the industry. I'm Kelly Schulz. I'm the CEO of the Maryland Tech Council. The Maryland Tech Council is a membership organization made up of industry leaders in life sciences and technology and everything in between. We've been around for 40 years, and our mission is to be able to expand the ecosystem in Maryland and to keep us on the map and to put us further on the map when it comes to innovation and founders. I'm the Secretary of Commerce for the state of Maryland. So the idea of mixing workforce development, economic development in these industries specifically is something that I'm very passionate about.
Last but not least, we have Christian Walker, CEO of Solaxa. Welcome, Christian.
Tien, thank you. Anthony, nice to see you again. Christian Walker, CEO of Solaxa. We're a biopharmaceutical public benefit corporation with roots here in Maryland. Started off at Walter Reed at the National Military Medical Center, where we learned that this old drug that was used for multiple sclerosis could actually help restore nerve function in wounded warriors. We've now taken that and found a new population of people with what's called a hereditary ataxia, where this drug works in about 80% of the people in as little as 1 hour with as little as one dose. And we're really excited to repurpose drugs and make a difference for people who have injured or damaged nerves. And I look forward to joining. Thank you
so much, Christian. We look forward to learning a little bit more about your product. And now I'd love to turn things over to my co-host, Anthony Millin. Anthony's a serial entrepreneur, venture capitalist, and one of the nation's leading startup attorneys. He is the founder and chair of Next, powered by Schulman Rogers. Next is disrupting the way legal services are being delivered. They have a unique fixed price structure, which allows for expert legal advice at rates and costs that startups and early stage companies can budget for. And in the last 2 years, Next has been recognized nationally by Legal Week as the Startup Emerging Law Firm of the Year. They've been a finalist for the American Lawyer's Most Innovative Law Award and Legal Week's Most Innovative Legal Department Award. And this year earlier, congrats, Anthony, Legal Week recognized you guys with the Leaders in Tech Award, Best Law Firm for Enabling Startup Success. Congratulations.
Thank you, Tien, and thanks to Deborah and Christian and Kelly for joining us today. You know, we have here today leaders in the life sciences from both an investor, ecosystem building, and founder perspective. And we would love to hear a little bit about how you see the ecosystem has changed and evolved when you look at it today versus, if we go pre-COVID and several years ago. How have you seen things change and evolve? And maybe, Kelly, we'll start with you.
Being new to the specific industry in the past year and a half since I've been CEO here, I just like to reflect back on my previous interactions over the course of the past 15 years with the industry. And boy, how has it expanded. And a little bit of an example of that is I happen to be a resident of Frederick County. And Frederick County is now the extension of the 270 corridor where life sciences and gene therapy, started here in Maryland. And now we're growing to the point where we're expanding out into neighboring communities and furthering the advancement of the idea of life sciences in Maryland overall. And I would say the other differences and the changes that I've seen, coming from an economic development standpoint is the amount of space and spec space when it comes to laboratories, and understanding that in order to be able to have that growth and expansion, you need to have available space for those emerging entrepreneurs to come in. And we have seen that throughout the state of Maryland in multiple regions. And I think that's just a good sign as to what's happening with those emerging companies coming out of our university systems, out of our military establishments, as Christian had come, and other incubator types. So I'm really optimistic about the resources and the assets that we've learned over the course of the 15 years that I've been involved as to how to expand and prepare for future growth.
And we'll get a little bit to that future growth, because I think you all have visions of how we approach that. But before we get there, Christian, what have you seen in this market in terms of evolution from a few years ago to where we are today?
So this is my third nerve startup company. The two previous companies were pre-COVID. I think it was much more of a reliance on sort of the structured funding model where you had to get your angel, you had to get your VC, you had a certain path, and it was quite prescribed. I'd say the thing that has changed the most with COVID is most of those rules seem to have been thrown out, some for good, some for bad, but it's much more of you have to find people who are interested, and you have to convince people that you have good ideas and need to do so in a compelling manner, and have to be able to think on your feet, because it has been a change in the financing environment. We relied, for example, for the first 2 years, we bootstrapped and relied exclusively on grant funding to get our first 2 clinical trials underway, all without taking any dilutive capital. But we're now looking at closing our first financing in the next month with help and support from the state of Maryland. And so I think the environment that you live in is critical to the success, and Maryland has certainly provided that opportunity for us.
Right. No, there is so much. We see it day in and day out in terms of how much Maryland is doing as a state for startups. One of those people you talk about needing to speak to is the investors, one group, and we have Deborah here who can kind of talk about from her perspective and all of her time in different capacities in this ecosystem. Deborah, what have you seen?
Yeah. So from my perspective as an entrepreneur, I mean, the total landscape has changed. You want to talk about a growing and emerging and exploding ecosystem. Like that's what I see here in terms of biomedical innovation, research, companies. And then now it's really exciting to be a part of this as an investor. I'd see the whole ecosystem just really starting to come together and to form like what is actually a sustainable, a robust, and a growing support system. It's an entire ecosystem for these startup companies. It's no secret that our companies have, been drawn to other locations where the ecosystem has been stronger in the past, but that's changing. And, this is certainly becoming quite an amazing and attractive hub for our life science companies. And so from an investment perspective, it's really thrilling to be a part of it and to help, provide capital to these early stage companies.
And from your vantage points, when you look at what you would like to see people coming together around certain initiatives at an ecosystem level, what are some big initiatives or, one big initiative that you think would be really helpful looking to the future to start to unite and bring different members of the ecosystem together under?
My firm participates with the Biotechnology Investment Incentive Tax Credit Program. And this has been a really phenomenal program for both attracting outside dollars from outside our state and also from within our state to come into our companies and to support our companies. So this brings in more money to our companies, and then it also has our companies, committed to staying here in the state. So leveraging programs like this Biotechnology Investments and Tax Credit Program make our state stronger by helping to build this incredible foundation that we have, in our life science and medical device sector. So I say, leaning into programs that we have, if we can look at expanding this program to make it stronger, I would be absolutely in favor for that. So I am a huge proponent of the tax credit programs.
Great. Kelly?
I'm also a huge supporter of the tax incentive programs and to be able to expand them into lots of different areas. I also think, as we think about Maryland in the larger context of these industries specifically, sometimes we tend to be a little bit fractured when we talk about different regions of the state. And I think by those regions of the state really coming together to create a larger ecosystem of Maryland, as opposed to some of the hubs within Maryland, I think that does a great advantage, especially when we're talking about some of the federal incentives and the plans, like the future of a Baltimore Tech Hub initiative that could be funded through the federal government, and really incorporating what's happening in the Baltimore Tech region with the 270 corridor, the Montgomery County, Frederick County regions, and how those come together, because it creates a stronger platform and infrastructure for the future.
Are you seeing, as you talk about Maryland as a whole, I think that that's probably also very important in terms of people outside of Maryland, when they looking at the state, whether it's global startups coming into the U.S. market and looking at the best place to launch their companies, they're looking at things at a broader state level. What are you seeing in the life sciences in terms of being able to attract people outside the region?
I'll just say, yes, you are absolutely right. In order to be able to market our companies and our ecosystem here, we are better off doing it all together as one for Maryland. Maryland is very fortunate. This past year, we were named the number 3 largest ecosystem for life sciences and bio in the country. Most people outside of Maryland don't really know that, right? But we need to get them to know that. So it's organizing events like this. So thank you so much to you and Tien for doing that, and for Deborah and her work, and Christian being an outstanding, not only member of the Maryland Tech Council, but a wonderful innovator and inventor and entrepreneur. But we have to say it often, and we have to say it loud, that Maryland together, it's better here, and the rest of the nation and the globe actually is depending on what's happening here for our innovation, and we have to just speak loudly about that.
And Christian, as a founder and entrepreneur in the space, what would you like to see some new initiatives that you think from a founder's perspective would really help continue to drive things forward in the future?
Building on the future, I think tying together both the federal initiatives that are already in place through BARDA, through the National Institutes of Health. I don't think people realize that most military medicine funding comes from Frederick, Maryland, and Fort Detrick, which is also home of National Cancer Institute. And most people don't know that Walter Reed is right across the street from the NIH. So I think it's really tying together and having people understand that I think each one of those pieces, people would recognize those names. But if you said, what's the unifying force behind them? I don't think they would all say that those are Maryland resources. And I don't think we've really been able to tell that story. I think getting those national recognitions and building the type of communities that Deborah and has been doing along with is important. But really, I think it's what Kelly says, say it loudly, say it often, and start talking about how all of these pieces together are more than the sum of their parts.
Great. Well, we're definitely hearing a common theme as you're talking about that in terms of the messaging and the communication. I'd like to just switch for my last question to all of you individually, just to talk about something that is really exciting you about your own organization plans in the near future. Maybe Deborah will come back to you to start us off there.
Okay. Yes. So we are closing our 8th deal. So that will be done in the next couple of weeks. So that's in the near future for what we're doing. And then we're also looking to continue to bring more capital into the really phenomenal companies that we have in this region. Simultaneously, we have a seminar series that we're building up the local talent that we have here. And we are also releasing this summer something that is coming. It's in the works, but basically it's a software tool to support many of our early stage companies across the state. So stay tuned for that. Some of our initiatives that we're building out specifically at Ecphora, but also I'm just really thrilled to see this whole ecosystem and really start to rise and, us all uniting and coming together. It's really a phenomenal place to be right now. And I'm just so thrilled to be part of this ecosystem.
Wonderful. Christian, what are you most excited about?
Well, I want to put a pitch in for for the fact that state of Maryland is also supporting public benefit corporations. Public benefit corporations are for-profit corporations that have a public benefit that's defined. Our benefit is that we develop neuroregenerative products that are both accessible and impactful. We want to make sure that those products have dramatically impact people's lives, but we also are not willing to limit access because of high dollar signs. And I also want to recognize United Therapeutics in the state of Maryland as a public benefit corporation. And I think it's really exciting that large amounts of PBCs are finding homes in Maryland. And to end, Solaxa is going from being a seed stage company. We'll be entering our phase 3 trials by the end of this year, and we'll have our first product on the market in 2026. So we're going full speed ahead, and with the support of a lot of people on this call. So thank you.
That's a lot to be excited about, and it's going to be really exciting to watch that journey as it progresses. And Kelly, you always have so much going on and doing so much for our ecosystem. What excites you at the moment in terms of near future?
It's hard to pick one, Anthony, but I'm going to focus a little bit on the mentoring. So we have a wonderful program at the Maryland Tech Council, and thank you to Shulman Rogers for your participation in our venture mentoring service. And I think that is at the beginning of teaching CEOs and founders how to be the best CEOs and founders that they can. It's a completely volunteer program. We have over 200 mentors that are a part of the program to help those mentees become the best that they can, and to provide them with access to resources that is, number one, going to keep them in Maryland. Number two, going to help them to grow. And number three, maybe to be a serial entrepreneur, that CEO that's going to have multiple successes and exits in the future. So I'm really excited about that with the Maryland Tech Council, but I'm also really excited about the workforce part of it. And I think we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but being able to identify and train those individuals that are coming in at every level of the bio market, especially as it relates to biotech manufacturing, and from entry level to PhD scientists. So we've got a lot going on.
Great. And to cover some of that, I'm going to turn it back to you, Tien.
Well, I have a couple of questions. I want to continue on this talent thread. And I totally agree with you, Kelly. We have to do a better job of promoting this region and all of our amazing resources. And since capital seems to be the lifeblood of all early stage companies, especially life sci companies, that could be an attraction. But I want to start with maybe Chris. So you're looking for talent, and you're sort of developing talent, and is there something, in addition to recruiting, but are there things that you're doing, either partnering with universities or community colleges or other types of organizations, or Kelly's organization? Are there any winning strategies you can share with our viewers in terms of, how to attract and develop talent?
Picking up on the venture mentoring service, we actually were about December of a little over a year ago. I had a number of mentors, one from Shulman Rogers, a number of others. Extremely helpful process for the following 2 to 3 months. And out of that, one of those venture members became a first investor, became a board member, became our COO, who introduced us to BioHealth Innovation Group and the BHI team. One of those BHI EIRs has now become our chief commercialization officer. So in terms of networking and experience and being able to build a team, you have to have the right story. In order to have the right story, you need the right mentors who are going to listen to that story 10 times in a row and give you the feedback in terms of how to tell a compelling story, not just from a great science story or a great business story, but from a story that gets people to write checks, gets people to be excited about what you're doing and to believe in your mission. And those are the critical elements in recruiting the team that we have. And it largely has been through word of mouth. We've never advertised a job position. We've never hired a recruiter. It's always been through our network. And that has definitely been a key part of our success.
Well, that's awesome. Kelly, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think number one, Christian is a prime example of how to do it really well and to do that networking. We're focused a little bit, in addition to those types of networking opportunities, to look at those entry-level positions within the industry, specifically, say, at that manufacturing, that output, that commercialization spot. And so we have a program that we're getting up and running called BioHub Maryland that will take entry-level and hopeful employees of the industries that have grown so much and that have the huge demands for that manufacturing process with a high school diploma, or returning veterans from the military going into civilian life, or people that are just looking to start something different. What we know is that those types of training capabilities, that we have a very specific curriculum that is the globally recognized standard to get this done, it works. And we can become the leader to attract more businesses because we're able to get that community of workforce up and going for the preparation for expansion and growth. So we have to look at it from the full spectrum of those entry level, starting in the industry positions, to making sure that we have the networking so that that CEO network and that COO network and that CIO network can really come together to create the foundation of advancement.
Yeah, no, I'm so happy to see BMS and you guys playing a key role in sort of being the hub for these mentors. And I totally agree with you. You got to get them early and get them in. I think that'll be a great draw, as you guys know, as former Secretary of Commerce, that'll drive more people to come here to the region. I want to talk a little bit about the financing market. Chris, you just mentioned you had an investor. Deb, you're in it. How do you find the current funding environment for early stage life sciences companies? Not talking so much about non-dilutive money, more, your angel and VC type dilutive sources.
Yeah, well, it's no secret that we are coming out of a pretty hard, pretty cold time, and I do think we are coming out of it. Yeah, I am seeing signs that spring is coming and winter is starting to thaw. It could not get any colder, so I'm happy to start seeing a little action there. So we are seeing signs that the climate is starting to shift and that investors are getting more active. And so if that continues on, into Q2, especially Q3 and Q4 by the end of the year, we'll have to see things really picking back up. So, it is a challenging time to raise funding still, but I would like to point out, as I like to do in these circumstances, that, even though it is more difficult to raise funding right now, the best companies are still raising. And we have, an example right now on this call of a fantastic CEO with a really strong company who has been able to raise, even in this really difficult environment. So I just would like to point out that deals are still being done, and we do hope to see that trend continue.
Yeah, Chris, you just did a round. Would you concur with that? Do you feel like the biotech winter is coming to an end?
Thankfully. Maryland Tech Council had a suite out at JP Morgan. This year, we went out in January. That resource alone provided us to have about 30 different meetings. We came out of those 30 meetings with 5 strong investor leads. One of those leads has now closed out our seed round and has signed a term sheet for our Series A lead. So we'll be closing both our seed round shortly, and we'll also be doing our A round and JP Morgan. Both of those events occurred. And so we're very bullish that good companies with good stories, I think, will be able to continue to attract funding. But I still have plenty of scars and war wounds from earlier days and know that there's still challenges ahead.
It's great to hear. And, Kelly, congratulations on everything the council is doing. Can you talk a little bit about some of the recent activities you've been doing, the last few years, to help match investors with awesome regional startups? I know I participated in your matchmaking last fall. I thought it was incredible, but that's just like one of the things you guys are doing. Let's hear about some of the other things you guys are doing to promote this sort of connectivity.
Yeah. So outside of the roughly 100 events that the Maryland Tech Council does a year, 100 events, Tien. So some of them are very specific, to a specific type of industry within the ecosystem. We have specific topics, all of that. But I would say without a doubt, one of the biggest benefits that our members get is our investment into those private meeting suites, both at Bio. We had one at JPM, and being able to have our members have that private space so they don't have to run around trying to find somewhere to meet with investors and helping to make those matches there. That is without a doubt from our members that are in that venture seeking world. It is the biggest benefit that they get from our investment at those types of conferences. But as you know, those connections and that networking is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job, right? So any of our members can reach out to us for introductions and networking and, kind of comparable relationships that they might have with somebody that either I or the very experienced folks on my team here at the Tech Council have access to. So it's an ongoing effort.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm just hearing from the three of you, I feel like the state of the market is that it is getting better and that Maryland is fairly thriving, actually, and the whole region as a whole, not just Maryland, but maybe we can wrap this up with, I'd like to ask maybe Christian and Deb, what advice would you guys have for an entrepreneur in the life sciences space today, raising money? Like if you had to give one or two things, what would you say, Deb?
Know your story, know what you're trying to do, why you're doing it, the impact that you're going to be able to make, and be able to tell that story in a succinct and compelling way. And, just know that while it is competitive, you can put yourself in the best position possible to compete and to bring on the support you need to get to the next stage.
Great advice. Christian, you're closed out your round. Any nuggets that you'd like to share?
Probably the best advice I can give is make yourself uncomfortable. Don't sit where you know what to do. Put yourself in places where you don't know what you're going to do, because you'll find additional things that you're good at. You'll find things that you really are not good at. Find people that are better at it to help you in those areas. And by challenging yourself and making yourself uncomfortable, it's the only way to grow. And as an entrepreneur, if you're not growing, you're dying. And our goal is to grow our companies, grow our community. And I feel very fortunate to have been a part of the Maryland ecosystem. We've received more support than I've been able to say on this call. Maryland Tech Council provided us to go to Bio for 2 years. We were part of the BioHub Capital Group. We won the Crab Trap Award this year through the BioHealth Innovation. And so really getting out into that environment and making yourself, I'm an introvert. I'm not an extrovert by nature. And so I had to challenge myself to get out from behind my desk, go out and meet people. And by making myself uncomfortable, I think it was certainly a key to the success that we're seeing now and hopefully into the future.
I've asked that question so many people over the years, and this is the first time I ever heard make yourself uncomfortable. So thank you for that. I think it's amazing, wise advice, Christian. And I'll let Kelly have the last word. Kelly, you guys are doing some amazing things. We have a lot of people that are listening in. They would love to get involved. So how can people get involved with the Tech Council?
Get involved with the Tech Council. Email me. It's really easy. Kelly@mdtechcouncil.com. Reach out, go to our website. Listen, this is all hands on deck kind of experience, right? And Maryland has a great opportunity to lead the path, not only in the technologies that are being started here and we're building upon because of what has been here for the last many couple of decades, but we also have the opportunity to create new things, right? So this whole idea of life science and how it connects with maybe our AI community and, our agricultural community, right? So when we talk about technology, life sciences, the industries in general in the state, we have so many different pockets of places for people to fit in and making those connections and see how to build off of each other's talents and innovations. I think the time is right for Maryland. And I'm really grateful for the other folks and all of you on the phone because there is a great story to tell. And we plan to tell that story loud and often, putting together, public sector, private sector, bring everybody together so that we can plant the flag and make sure that investors outside of Maryland know that it's really safe to invest here and to allow those businesses to stay here because we have the resources, the capabilities, and the desire to make them successful.
Amen to that. And congrats on everything you're doing. Christian, congratulations to you, and also you, Deb, on your 8th deal. Really inspiring conversation. Thank you guys for sharing your thoughts with us. With that, let me turn it over to Anthony.
Thanks, Tien. We want to thank Christian and Deborah and Kelly for joining us today. We really also, as part of the ecosystem, want to recognize and thank you for all of your leadership and what you do every day to help make Maryland and the region continue to grow and flourish and in the biosciences and life sciences area. And thank you for joining us on today's show.